Have you ever been left in just total silence, wondering what in the world was going on in the other person's head? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We're stepping behind all the pride and the fear to find out what that person who went quiet on you would say if they could just be completely honest. Okay, let's get into it.
The very first thing, the absolute truth that's been sitting on their chest this whole time is this. It's so powerful, so direct, and it just cuts right through all that quiet. That distance you felt? Turns out, it was just an illusion, because in their mind, you were always there.
So, how does that even work? How can someone be thinking about you constantly while at the same time building this massive wall of silence? It sounds like a contradiction, right? But that paradox, well, it's the entire key to this whole situation. Because what you saw on the outside, that was all the defense mechanism, not what they were actually feeling.
And get this, these are the moments their silence was actually the loudest. They were thinking of you on the very days they were actively pretending you didn't exist. They thought of you when they were out trying to fill that space with other people, you know? Every single brick they laid in that wall of silence was just more proof of how hard they were trying not to think about you and completely failing.
And this is the central irony, isn't it? When you were around, your presence was a comfort. But the moment you were gone, your absence became this deafening roar in their life. It created a void that nothing and no one else could fill, which forced them to finally face the one thing they were running from. So why run in the first place? If this connection was so intense, what made them retreat? Here's the thing. It was never about you. It was about them. It was a reaction completely driven by this really powerful cocktail of their own internal fears.
This breakdown makes it so clear. The person you actually saw, the one who pulled back, who went quiet, who acted so distant, that was just a mask. Behind it was someone who was absolutely terrified. Terrified of being vulnerable, terrified of losing control of their own emotions, and, most of all, terrified of the incredible depth of what they were feeling for you.
And if we break down those fears, you can really see what was going on. Sure, feeling vulnerable and losing control were huge factors, but the biggest driver, the real engine behind this whole thing, was the sheer intensity of their own feelings. You tapped into something inside them that maybe no one else ever had, and that level of raw emotion, they just had no idea how to handle it.
Okay, so here's where the script completely flips. See, for a while, they were the one in control, right? They were calling the shots with their silence. But then, you stop reaching out, and the entire dynamic shifted in a way they never ever saw coming.
And this, right here, was their fatal miscalculation. They just took your presence for granted. They pulled away assuming you would just wait, that you'd always be on the other side of that wall they were building. The moment they realized that wasn't a guarantee, the shock was real. You see, your silence wasn't peaceful for them. It was deeply, deeply unsettling. And why? Because it took away their last distraction. With you gone, there was nowhere left to run. They were finally forced to sit alone with the very feelings that made them disappear in the first place.
And that quiet time, that forced reflection, it kicks off this major internal conflict. It becomes this full-on heavyweight battle between their pride, which is screaming at them to stay silent and protect themselves, and their heart, which is just quietly whispering your name over and over again.
In this new quiet, they start to notice things. They start to compare. And what they find is that nothing else measures up. Other conversations feel empty, other connections just feel shallow. And they realize that what they had with you, that was different. That felt real.
And that realization leads them to this one haunting question. It's the one that probably keeps them up at night. This nagging fear that in their attempt to protect themselves from getting hurt, they might have actually destroyed something truly special, something irreplaceable.
And if they could map out their regrets, it would look just like this. They know they should have just talked to you instead of making all these assumptions. They know they should have valued you when they actually had the chance. And ultimately, they know they should have chosen the courage to face their feelings over the heavy regrets they now live with every day.
But this right here is such a crucial point. Just because someone feels regret, it does not mean they've suddenly found the courage to fix it. A lot of the time, the very same fear that caused them to leave is the same fear that now keeps them silent, totally trapped in this loop of just wishing things were different.
So, this all leads to the final act. If we could strip away all the fear, all the pride, all the ego, what's the one thing left? What's the one thing they truly wish they could tell you? It's this: Underneath everything else, there is a genuine, deep care for your well-being. It's a selfless wish, really, that shows how much they actually felt. They want the best for you, even if they recognize their own actions mean they can't be a part of it. But right on the heels of that selfless wish comes this bittersweet human truth. A small part of them, the part that remembers just how real it all felt, still holds on to a little bit of hope. Not because they want control, but because the connection you two shared, it just wasn't ordinary.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway from all of this. Their silence was never, ever about you not mattering. It was the exact opposite. You mattered so much that it brought all their fears and all their limitations to the surface. The great paradox is that they walked away not because they didn't care, but because they cared way too much.
So I want to leave you with this thought. This entire complex emotional story, it all played out in complete silence, totally unheard. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own lives, in all those quiet spaces between words, what other powerful truths are just sitting there, waiting to be understood? What else goes unsaid?